What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. I'm Russ Brown. He's Scott Bischoff. Scott, my man, how the hell are you? I know you're feeling a little rough, but
we're good.
Hanging in there.
Moving on. Yeah, we're good.
You doing all right?
Yeah. How are you?
We're good, man. We are good. It's Senior Bowl, Shrine Week, kind of wrapping up the Shrine Bowl. They did that the other night and working through a lot of that practice tape. And then obviously Senior Bowl practices are going on. It's day 3. Technically it's day 4 down there, but it's day 3 of practice if memory serves me right. So a lot of good things going on down there. And we'll get into a recap show for the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, and we'll get into that a little bit maybe next week. But we wanted to jump in with offensive tackles, really offensive line kind of in general, but more so offensive tackle, looking at the top and then kind of looking at a couple of names as the next tier. Because I think as we've mentioned on this show, I know I think offensive tackle is the biggest need for the Lions. It is by far the thing that matters most for them. You can kind of make things work with a veteran center or a younger center. You still have Graham Glasgow. It's not the worst case scenario. I mean, that's your worst case scenario, but it's not the worst option, right? We really don't know what's going on with Decker, and we really don't know what the future holds at left or right tackle for the Lions outside of Penei Sewell. So I think it's a really interesting conversation to dive into offensive tackles, and you feel the same way. And I think there's quite a few guys that at the top of the draft that are really intriguing that might actually make it to the Lions at 17. I think maybe one or two of them won't. We'll see. But it's a really interesting conversation of like, do they bring Penei over from the right side and play him at left side? Do they, what is the comfortability level there? Not just for the organization, but us as a fan base. Like, are we comfortable with Penei Sewell going from the right side to the left side? And I guess I'll start there. What's your viewpoint on that? I know you're kind of like, hey, I'm good either way, but ultimately, what's your viewpoint?
Well, I mean, I think in a perfect world, you wouldn't ever really move. Like maybe he might be the best right tackle in football. Yeah. Let's just say he is. Should you ever move? I mean, why are you displacing that and changing things? But having said that, the opposite side of that coin is it's easier to find right tackle than it is to find premium left tackle. And we know that Penei Sewell can be a really good left tackle. Yeah. So the best team first move might be to move Sewell to play left tackle, and whoever you draft, whether that guy played left tackle in college or right tackle in college, blah blah blah. Maybe that guy becomes your right tackle. Don't really know if that's how as I'm saying that almost sounds ridiculous. Does this sound ridiculous what I'm saying? I mean, if you have a lock it up left tackle in college, you probably should play him at left tackle, but the pick is at pick 17. So it's tough to find that, right? So I think we both feel that there's a few guys who, if they picked them at 17, we would leave Penei Sewell. I shouldn't speak for you, but you should probably leave Sewell at right tackle and let that guy survive. Leave Sewell at right tackle, let that guy play left tackle, and maybe sit behind Decker for a half a season or whatever it is. Who knows? But there are some scenarios where, let's just say it's Francis Maui Goa that slips to them for some silly reason, and he gets all the way to 17, and you think it's not a left tackle. He's not going to play left tackle in the NFL. But would you take him and let him play at right tackle and move Sewell? I think you probably would. And I think you'd be pretty happy doing it. So I think it just depends on the player, but there are scenarios where I would think that it would be reasonable to do what I just said, moving Penei Sewell, but there's also that larger, you should never move a foundational piece of your offense. So I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think the benefit for the Lions is I know there's a couple of holes to kind of fill, right? Do you need a guard, a center? We know we need a tackle. What's that all going to look like? Because you could technically, in theory, find your offensive tackle to play left or right side, and then obviously you play opposite of Penei Sewell. But then you've got Christian Mahogany, Tate Ratledge, Miles Frazier. that could potentially be your starting interior offensive line. Worst case scenario, you could also have Graham Glasgow in the mix. So I think the benefit for the Lions is that this is going to be, to me, at least through my evaluation of scouting these guys up to this point, it's a better offensive line class than I think maybe originally given credit for. There's not necessarily those elite guys at the top of the draft, but there are guys, at 17 that makes sense. There's guys at pick 50 for sure that makes sense. And the further down the list you go, there's still a lot of guys that make sense. Obviously, they have to develop. They've got to transition into much better players as pros. There's a lot of potential with this offensive line class. So at the top, I don't see in any world that Spencer Fanu is there at 17. But he may end up falling a little bit where maybe the Lions get aggressive and they're like, hey, this is the guy that we want. This is our left tackle of the future. This is what we're going to roll with, or this is our right tackle of the future because that's what he played last year. So yeah. What's it look like for you at the top as far as, some of the players that you're looking for? I know you like those two Utah players quite a bit, and you had texted me a little bit on them, but you have a couple of concerns there.
Yeah. So I think both of those guys need a little time. So they both remind me of when Brian O'Neill entered the league from Pittsburgh. I don't even know where he got drafted. I think he was a second rounder, I think.
Yeah.
So he was that real linear, super mobile, kind of freaky mover kind of player, but he needed to physically develop and get stronger. So I think both Fano and Caleb Lomu are very much like that. Almost like, I would say Colton Miller-ish too. Colton Miller's 6'9", so it's a little different, I guess, but still similar in that they're very spindly. They look like tight ends. If they walked by you on the street, you would think NFL tight end. You wouldn't think NFL tackle, right?
Right.
So I'm not saying they're small guys because they're both 6'5" plus and probably in the 295 plus range as young men. But I do think they need a touch of time to fill out and grow up and add some functional mass, both of them physically, right? So they need to put on some weight and get stronger. But the upside with those guys is that if they can do that, does anybody think Brian O'Neill's a bad tackle in the NFL?
I don't think so.
No,
he's pretty solid.
Right. But to me, these are both of those guys move, incredibly well. They both look to me like players that you'd want to just throw out in a zone system and just have them run, just go. Yeah. And you pick up whoever shows up kind of thing. We can get into the individual notes I have on each of them, but I do think that sort of sums up both of them for lack of being able to describe both their games. It's just, I don't know that they're going to uproot defensive ends in power schemes. And I'm not sure that, all the wrinkles that the Lions are going to want to throw in with what they, moving tackles and that kind of stuff are going to be perfect for them in year one. So I do think there's a little bit of time that they would have to have, before you'd really see it with them. But they're both pretty premier players. Fano, I think, is a little ahead of Lomu at this point.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because I want to say Fano played left tackle early in his career and has played right tackle for 2 years for them. And Lomu is stepped in. I mean, we can get into Fano. What do you think about those guys?
Well, I really like Fano. And I'm going to butcher every name that we ever talk about on this show. So
am I. So let's just do it. Let's get it out of the way.
But I really like him. I mean, I think he was really aggressive in 2024, kind of took a step back in that regard in 2025. I love the lower body flexibility with both players. I think there's a lot of flexibility there, which is something I always look for when guys are stiff and, play upright. It's a tough watch, but I just always have that concern of like, they're not going to be able to lower their pad level to anchor, or they're not going to have the speed with their lower body quickness to match some of the speed of those perimeter players that they see, whether they're rushing inside, countering inside, whatever the case may be. But I like Fano enough to where I feel very comfortable that he's, one of the 10 best players in this draft, and probably in my board he's going to end up as as a top 7 player.
Yeah.
That said, Lomu, I thought there were times where he wanted to finish, but he doubted what he could do. And I think that's something that can be taught with both of these players. You guys can absolutely maul in the run game, or even in the pass game. There's times that Lomu hits a snatch trap technique and then doesn't do anything for the rest of the game. And I'm like, well, what's going on? There's some inconsistency. So I'm with you there. But I really like both players. And if that was the route that they went at 17, and I think Lomu's probably a little bit more realistic than Fano, but I would be okay with it, just because I know that I think either player has the flexibility to play either tackle spot. And that's what I think at 17, if you were to go offensive tackle, that's about what this draft is for, finding a flexible tackle that can play, a flexible and versatile tackle that can play either spot.
And it's interesting too, because with those two guys, I think you're looking at, and this is the problem with the whole draft evaluation in freaking January. Is there a world in which either of those guys is able to play guard if they fail at tackle? Not really.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's a little riskier. It's riskier with those two guys specifically. Maybe one more. Maybe we're going to talk about somebody a little bit later that you and I both, I think, really like. I'm not sure he's going to be a guard either.
Which is fine because he's a left tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think he'll be there at 17 when it's all said and done either. I'd be surprised. However, I will say this till I'm blue in the face. I am terrible at a lot of things in the world. I'm awful. Like there are times I think when people around me think, how have you made it this far? What the, seriously? I'm terrible at some of these things. And one of the things I'm worst at on the planet is projecting where players are going to go. Last year I think I said Jared Ivey was going to be an early pick, not necessarily a first round pick, but at this point in the process, I thought he would be a player the Lions might be interested in late, in round 1. I don't even know if he got drafted. So grain of salt with all this stuff, I don't think anybody really well, I should have been able to see the seriously underwhelming athleticism with him, but I didn't. So whatever. The point is that sometimes the stuff is not the easiest stuff to see, but with some of these players we're going to talk about, you just know they're going to rise to. Yeah. I mean, there's so many needs for a premium left tackle, right? That they're going to go.
Yeah. And these guys are going to rise, but then they're also going to level off, and it's all part of the process. I mean, it's peaks and valleys, right? You're going to get guys that really shoot up boards, guys that taper off a little bit, guys that drop off, and you're going to get those steady Eddie guys as well. And I think with some of these offensive tackles, you're going to get some steady projections and steady production from quite a few of these guys. You mentioned. And I guess we'll just jump into him as a guy that we don't think is probably going to be a guard. He's more of a left tackle. And I know a few weeks back on the show when we kind of kicked off the offseason, I labeled him as one of my draft crushes already. And I feel very confident in the fact that I think he is one of the 15 best players, 20 best players in this draft class. And that's Georgia left tackle Monroe Freeling. I think there's just so much to work with within his game. And you mentioned, we talk about flexibility with the Utah guys. There's a lot of flexibility within his lower half, but what I love most about his game is how he climbs to that second level. But I know you've got some notes on him. You've been watching him as of late, and maybe there's some recent bias there. I don't really think that's the case. I trust your eyes and what you see when it comes to anything NFL draft, specifically offensive linemen. So what do you see when you watch Monroe Freeling, and what's so encouraging about him as a prospect?
Well, I think it's the pass pro stuff where it's like you're getting. There's multiple things I think with him that stand out to me as super intriguing. Also, for these reasons, I'm not sure that he's even going to be there at 17 when all's said and done. But so he's 6'7" plus, like 6'7" and 1/8 from what I understand. 84-inch wingspan. unless he's got the strangest body makeup in the history of the world, he's probably going to have, long enough arms that there are no consideration. There are no issues there, right? So,
Yep.
So from a build standpoint, he's prototypical, left tackle looking guy. He looks to me like a very solid athlete. Is he freaky athlete? No, but he's got, there's plenty there. He mirrors extremely well. He moves very easy. I think that, when you look at him, it's more traits-based stuff because he's going to he's 22. So, we're talking about a younger guy who's got prototype size and has all the athletic movement stuff that you want. Is he great throwing? Is he great punching right now? Does he use independent hands? All that stuff. There's some room there, but end of the day with him, SEC competition, he looked really good in pass pro. And then there are moments where you look at him, let's say there's a play I think you put on your Twitter, or X, whatever it's called. I don't even know.
Yeah, no, you're good.
But he's down blocking a 3 technique, and it's an inside play. So it's the ball ends up getting run in the front side A gap, and he's on the front side of the play. And so he down blocks on the 3 and displaces him, I want to say, multiple gaps. It's not just pops him out of the B gap or into the front side A gap, or not even, I don't even know if he goes backside A gap. I think it's more backside B gap is where this 3 technique ends up on his face. And it's simply because Freeling gets on his hip and doesn't. And that's technical. That's such a technical thing. Like if you want to watch tackles move people in the run game, it's because they're getting on their hip and just digging them out of there. Yeah. And he does that stuff. Penei Sewell does that stuff all the time. Yep. Right. So Freeling does the stuff in this particular play, but the most intriguing thing is that it's not that he's able to do that at the first level. It's that his head is in his gap. His head is tracking the second level target, the linebacker, and he's athletic enough to get off of that first block after just crushing this dude and get out to the linebacker, seal the linebacker, and the running back is able to run through the lane that he made himself, in that front side A gap. And it's like, that's super impressive stuff. Yeah. And it's almost like if you were coaching a high school offensive line, you would show your tackle that play, like get on the hip, get low, run your feet, drive your feet, but get your head around, right? And when you got to get out of there, be quick and athletic enough to get out of there and aware enough that you got to get your head around and get it out of there. And then seal the linebacker off of that play and give your running, and it ends up being like a 7-yard gain. So it's not like an end of the world kind of a play, but it's the technical stuff where you think this dude's doing these things at 21. Yeah. And very few college players do those things. So I like him. I would, if the Lions were to end up with him at 17, I would pencil him in as a Taylor Decker-like player for a long time. Yep. And that's kind of the point. Like we all, Taylor Decker, right? Like at this point, we're all thinking, they got to move on from him, but he's had a really good career.
He has.
Right. And it's not because he's been the best left tackle in football for years. It's because he's been steady and consistent and reliable for so long. That's kind of what you need, right? So, what do you see some what do you see some Freeling?
You're good. I think it's really odd that 10 years ago, 16th overall, we drafted Taylor Decker, and he becomes our franchise left tackle for the last 10 seasons, plays 140 games. Here we are, 10 years later, trying to figure out what direction we're going to go at either left or right tackle. And again, Decker still might be a part of the plan for this upcoming season. He still might come back and do one more year. We don't know. But it really sounds like he's either done or got that year left. So preparing for the future is really smart, I think, at 17. And that's why Monroe Freeling is so intriguing because of, the technical things that he provides. And that's what always stands out. But 17th overall, you get that left tackle of the future. Man, the potential is through the roof. He's currently 21, going to be 22 in July. To your point, he's playing SEC teams, and like, not everything is picture perfect. There are definitely times where he gets beat. There are times where he, lets somebody rip inside and he doesn't get down or get his head across. But the consistency outweighs the consistent good plays outweigh that one bad play. So for every 4 good plays I get the one bad play. I can live with that. And that's just the way football's going to go no matter what. You're not going to dominate on every single rep. So
the point, it's a good point you're making because there are warts, right? But if the Lions were picking 5th overall and had their choice of any tackle in this draft class, they're drafting a player with some warts, period. It just, they are, whether you think it's Maui Goa, who we'll get to, or Fano, there are going to be issues that come with that player. There just are.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And as you start to like rank players, right? Like I go through things and I'm like, Fano, I feel very comfortable in saying I think he's the best tackle in the draft. But then I think it's wide open for that number 2 tackle spot. And rankings to me, they don't, at the end of the day, like they matter, but they don't matter. Everybody's going to view the game differently. And to me, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's just about identifying good talent, good players, and developing them. And when you identify talent and who you can develop, you can develop all these guys. All these guys have their own talent. But man, I really just get stuck on Freeling, of him playing a premier position this past season at a high level. And there's so much from a traits perspective to work with, and technically sound. Like, he is so technically sound already. I think he can get so much better, which is a really promising sign, because if he were to step in the league and just kind of play how he has, I'm getting a pretty good player. But if he can get better and just eliminate some of those warts that we're talking about, man, we're talking about a really good football player now. So
that's the problem, is that we're talking about him like this, and NFL teams are too, and they're thinking the exact same thing.
Exactly. And I think that's a beautiful thing of this whole process, because it's always fun, I think, to see how your thought process aligns with some of your favorite teams in the league. That's what's the beauty of all of this. So moving to a couple of other guys, I know that you've got 2 other guys on your list, so I'll let you kind of have at it. And one of them, I kind of feel like there's a lot of potential there, but I think he might actually be best if he is a guard sometimes, like when I watch him, and that is Kaden Proctor.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with him, and I'm still trying to resolve some of that stuff. 6'7", 366 pounds.
Light on his feet for the most part. I mean,
yeah, it's weird. Like, do you remember when J.C. Latham was in the draft?
Yeah.
And some of the same issues that Latham has in the NFL, and I think some of the issues that might potentially cause problems for him, are apparent in Proctor's film too.
Yeah.
I think with Proctor, the first thing to recognize is he's just a huge person who's going to probably have, I don't want to say weight issues, but there's a certain consideration that goes into that. Like, do you trust that, right?
Yeah.
But he's pretty explosive in his movements. I think he moves really well for a huge guy. But to me, I see kind of a guy who wants to lean more so than use his hands. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of leaning that happens, and it's just that's always problematic, because if you lean like that and you're up against, somebody who's kind of maybe up. I mean, we saw. Let's use the Markel Bell play from the Senior Bowl and on day one, where Derek Moore just got up underneath him, and the violence of the way he uses leverage, his helmet, his hands at the same time. It's not that Bell at 350 pounds, whatever he was, can't handle more, but in that scenario, it's the violence of that movement and his ability to not use his hands and just present his body and his chest. Yeah. And it's like, you're going to get kind of blown up by these 250-pound dudes who are good with their hands,
right,
and who play with great leverage, right? So that's going to be the issue for me with Proctor, is that I see a guy who's a little bit of a leaner. He's on the ground all the time.
Yeah, that's something I just don't understand. I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
every
you're
single
good.
time you watch him, it's like, why are you on the ground? What is going on here?
I think there are balance things, and it's the same. I mean, again, if we all go back to watching Latham would end up on his face a lot as a run blocker, because he'd get so far out over his feet, aggressive, but he wouldn't use his hands, right? So there's a lot of that where, he's on the ground a lot. His head and shoulders are over his toes all the time. I mean, it's obvious to see that he's got really good power. It's pretty obvious, right? But his balance is strange. Like, there are moments where it's like you got jolted a little by a smaller player, and now your balance is really off and you're falling off of your blocks. And it's just, I don't know, right? So it's strange to say that we're worried that a dude who's as big as he is might have to play guard in the NFL, but that's kind of where it is. And again, it's not like it's a resolved thought process for me yet, because I don't really know what I think of him. I just know that that there are issues inside his game that I don't necessarily love, and I don't know that those issues are going to get resolved quickly as an NFL. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. And that's why sometimes I wonder, would he be better off inside at guard where he's not so much on an island all of the time, right? Like he can kind of fluctuate with help from either a tackle or a center. If a running back is inserting to pick up a blitz, he might get some help there or assistance. But if he's at that left tackle or right tackle spot, there's going to be a lot of times where he's on an island. And if those balance concerns happen and are frequent, then I'm a little worried. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot to work with. It's just, man.
Does he remind you of Evan Neal at all?
Yeah, I could kind of see that. Just a bigger body, balance concerns like you mentioned, but has the ability to play tackle, but again, might be better suited for guard, kind of like Evan Neal is now doing for the Giants. So
yeah.
I think that's a great point. I think it's going to be really interesting. I wouldn't hate him at 17. I can tell you that. It would depend on who's on the board, and if and
that's a situational thing too. Like, I don't think Proctor can play left tackle, so you're moving Penei Sewell in that scenario, and maybe that's a fine thing. I mean, who knows? We don't have it's not like there's a crystal ball and we know, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's just, you can see some of the stuff where you think, all right, that's going to be a bigger problem, big picture in the NFL than it is in college, and it's already a problem in college.
Yeah,
and we've seen, and it feels lazy for me to talk about Evan Neal and J.C. Latham. Those are Alabama dudes, and that's where Proctor is. So, but there's a long list of, like, Amarius Mims, to me is similar in some ways with Proctor. Like, Mims was just a mountain of a dude, right? And he could move. Is he gonna stay at the edge, for Cincinnati long term? I don't know. Right. So and then with these really big guys, like, do we think that either of them can play guard? I don't know. It's just Proctor's evaluation and his process into the NFL is going to be fascinating to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I think that's always it's a fun conversation to have with people, because they talk about arm length and size, and like the offensive tackles that are only like 6'4.5", they're like, oh, he's got to play guard.
Yeah,
it's like I don't think
not if he can move his feet.
Right, it's not always true. Like, and if you have longer arms or longer limbs, it takes longer to reload and reset yourself against a certain pass rush. So I think that's always an interesting conversation. I know you have one more guy that you wanted to get into from Miami, Florida, Francis Maui Goa.
Two more that I think are round one kind of dudes. Maui Goa, really, really solid, good football player. Mm-hmm. We mentioned it earlier. If the Lions land him at pick 17 or whatever, in a move up or whatever, I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. I think we would all think, yeah, this is great. You got Sewell on one side, you got this monster on the other side. It's all good, right? Hidden inside there, there's high level play. He looks like a mauler. You can see him easily drop his hips, roll his hips, and just stun power moves. He can anchor down and just wall that stuff off. It's pretty, to me, that looks like it's pretty easy for him to do that. Like, no big deal. We're not going anywhere. We're you know what I mean? Like, we're getting locked up right here.
Right.
To me, I don't see great foot quickness. And I think that there will be issues inside some pass pro stuff with him where he will lose because of the foot speed limitations, right? But that's almost nitpicking in some ways.
Right.
There's been a conversation for a while around him. Will he play tackle? Will he play guard? To me, this is a kind of guy that you have to let play tackle and hope it works. But if it doesn't, you have a very, very high floor guard just because of the power and the competitiveness and all the things that we can already see on his film.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when his initial movement, like as a run blocker, if his initial movement is stopped, that his pads will rise and he'll kind of fall off of blocks at times. But when you get him to anchor down and play with good pad level, he's moving people. I don't think you'd have any concerns with running the ball to either side. You'd have very physical stuff there. The questions is in the end, is he going to be a right tackle or a guard? And I think that takes time for it to play out. I don't know what his arm length is. Sometimes that's a hard thing to look at on film and determine. And some of it is also, you mentioned it a few minutes ago. Like if you can move your feet, it mitigates arm length concerns. Yep. It's tough for me to find length issues and pass pro issues with him on film that are length related. I think if there's anything, it's probably a concert of maybe a touch of lacking some foot quickness combined with possibly some shorter arm stuff, but not a lot of that, So I think he'd be the one guy where you'd think, all right, from a floor standpoint, this is one of the best football players in the draft, period. Doesn't matter where you play him, period. He's going to be a really good football player somewhere, and you hope that's as a right tackle.
Yeah, I think he's a common name that's brought up in, the NFL draft world for the Lions as far as a potential option at 17. And I think he makes a lot of sense. I love the mauling style that he has. But yeah, I'm with you a little bit as far as like the concerns with some of the foot speed. And I do wonder, is he gonna be able to sometimes flip his hips if he's got that speed rush and a guy that's trying to dip under the table, so to speak? Yeah. Is he going to be able to match that? And I worry about that from time to time. But I would be okay if he ended up being the future right tackle for the Lions at 17. But if I had my pick, I would hold off a round and I would go at pick 50 or maybe even a small trade down scenario from 50. And I'd be looking at Jude Bowery from Boston College because that's the name that I was going to mention. I can't stop watching his tape. The guy is good, a good football player. And I think this is one of those players that kind of ends up falling in the conversation of like, well, he's only, 6'4", he's 6'4" and 7/8. So he's, damn near 6'5", 315 pounds, 34-inch arms.
He's small.
Right. He's too small.
Right.
But there's so much to like with him. He's explosive out of his stance from a 3-point to a 2-point stance. There's a lot to like there. I think the length really shows up. He's able to lock out defenders. He down blocks really well. I like how he gets out in space, and he's a Senior Bowl kid that, probably worth circling and watching all the reps that you can on him on practice tape, but just diving into his tape. I mean, he's played so much at right tackle, throughout his career, as a true freshman all the way through, but he's played some left tackle as well. Like 2024, he started all 12 games at left tackle. So he's a team captain this past year, moved over to the right side, at some point, but started all 9 games this year at left tackle. So he kind of moves back and forth, but I love the way he plays. And I think there's a lot to be desired there. I think he's more of like a right tackle, but again, a team might view him as a left tackle and say, hey, this is like a future Deion Dawkins type of player. You never know.
Yeah.
So I think there's much to be desired there. And then the other one, I don't know if you've gotten into Bowery or not, so I can leave it to you.
No,
just keep it rolling.
Yeah.
So Carver Willis is the other one from Washington. And I mean, this dude is stronger than shit. He is so strong. And he's another Senior Bowl player that continues to stand out time and time again, has moved inside. He's played tackle, 6'4", 305. That's a little concerning, but I think he was listed at like 315, 316. Probably dropped his weight a little bit just to show some of the athleticism that he has. But man, is he strong. And he's played a lot of football in his career. He played, I think he started 18 games at Kansas State, and then obviously has started this past season at Washington. But it is some really impressive tape with how he shows good flexibility and weight transfer from his post foot to his set foot, the way that he handles outside to inside moves from pass rushers and even blitzing linebackers. I love that he anchors and then just digs guys out in the pass game. And they're trying to push the pocket, and he finds a way to flip them and just extend them away from the pocket. And it's like those little details, I think, really stand up obviously more probably in NFL coaching circles and scouting departments than it probably does on social media. But I see it and I'm just like, man, this guy really is talented. So I'll be curious how he projects to the next level. But the more that I watch him, the more that I think he's another high caliber football player worthy of that offensive tackle conversation for the Lions. Not necessarily at 17, but
he looks like a wrestler to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like that guy.
Yeah. And as far as I know, he didn't wrestle, but maybe he did younger in his days. I don't know. He was a basketball player and football player, but from things that I've researched, but again, he might be a wrestler from at some point, maybe in middle school or something, and just kind of learned how to play with leverage.
It's the hip power, like the power that he translates coming out off of his hips when he does bend his knees. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
I do think that in some ways it probably helps for a guy like that to be a little bit on the shorter side because he's naturally he has leverage, right? Like it's impressive stuff. I only have one more. This was more for me on my side. This was more like, all right, who are the first round kind of names? And the last one I have is Jennings Dunker, and I'm going to get killed for it. I know it because, I think.
Say it with your chest, man. Who cares?
Well, no, it's not like I'm making shit up. It's, I don't know. So he's got the mullet, and I think that it's just for some people that's just such an attractive thing for a dude to look the way he looks. And also it's an Iowa thing. Like, he's an offensive lineman at Iowa. So you kind of feel, Iowa offensive lineman. Okay.
Yeah.
There are no issues with length. He's got 34-inch arms. I want to say he measured like 6'5" and 315 pounds. He's all that, right? But when I watch him, he labors so much in the way he moves.
Yeah.
That I have now I don't think I'm on an island with this sort of thought process, but I know that he had a good first day in the Senior Bowl moving and the way he looked on the hoof there, where I think it changed some perspective for people who were down there looking in relation to what his tape looks like. Because if you watch him at Iowa, I think it's tough to see a player who's going to survive on the edge.
Yeah.
With the way he labors and just his movements, right? So to me, it's like the 34-inch arms aren't all that relevant because I don't think he moves well enough to use his length.
Yeah.
And I can see what Iowa does with him, and that's essentially asking him, if you're going to lose outside. That's kind of what it looks like. But I also think that that's giving him a pass because he loses outside, and he doesn't have the foot speed to hang with some pass rushers.
Yeah.
So I think he has to go inside. He's got really good power. He's gonna as a running game blocker. He's gonna displace people. Like he's gonna he's got knockback power. He's gonna vertically displace defensive linemen. He just is. And you can see all that. To me, I think his quickness is a very big question mark. I watch him and I think that looks like a guard. Again, he labors in his movement so much, but I wonder, tinkering around with him, I wonder if this is a guy, because of how physical he is and how he uses his hands and all that stuff, I wonder if this is a guy who could potentially make the move to center and be a very high-level center because of the mauling style that he does play and the way he will displace people, especially like doubling. Think about him like doubling with guards and what that would look like. And to me, that's intriguing. Like thinking about him going, not necessarily going from guard, but maybe to center. It wouldn't surprise me if he took some center snaps in the draft process to show teams that he can do that. It wouldn't surprise me. But I think that's part of it, is that he knows that I think I'm being cast as a guard. Yeah. I could be wrong about this.
And these guys get advice too, right? Whether it be from an agency or their agent, or even just with talking with a scout, right? Like they get these 15-minute sessions at every single all-star event, every single day, to talk with certain teams and all that stuff. So they talk to all 32 teams multiple times. Obviously, some teams more than others, but who's to say, if he's talking to, let's say, a Bengals scout or something, and the guy's like, yeah, you're going to probably be a guard for us. He's hearing that stuff. Like they're going to tell him that.
Yeah.
And you ask those questions as a scout to see how that player would respond to that, because it's good to know, like, hey, this guy would be on board with it. No, he wouldn't be on board with it. We got to find a way to convince him, type deal. And most guys would probably be like, I'm just happy to be playing in the NFL, right? But you never know. I'm with you, though.
The last thing I'll say about him. Do you remember Gray Zabel playing tackle at North Dakota State?
Yeah.
That's what his tackle film looks like to me. Where you go, there are moments when the physical stuff is all there, all about it. It's good.
Yeah.
But got to go inside. That's what I see.
Yeah, no, I see a guard. I'm with you. I never really thought of the center stuff, but I think it makes a lot of sense. He said, he's been doing a lot of center work, and I think it's probably going to more so happen at the combine, where maybe he does some of that stuff, maybe pro day as well. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But I'm with you. I think he's really intriguing, especially if you think of the Lions with Drew Petzing and a lot of the pin and pull stuff that he wants to do. Yeah. He could be that guy that's not necessarily pulling. He's the guy pinning. And I think that's important to have. You need a guy that can block down and kind of kick out and create space and create, areas for the guards and tackles and the guys that are pulling to wrap and kick out. So
I don't think he'd have any problems doing that.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. So I think it would be really good. As far as, just for me, one other name I'll add, as a guy that played tackle and is going to be moving to center. I mean, that's without question. That's Duke offensive lineman Brian Parker. He was at the Shrine Bowl this past week and was really impressive. There's some things to work on, but 6'4", 306, sub 33-inch arms. There's still a lot to work there, and he's a former center. He played it in high school. He got more comfortable by the day, I felt, looking at Shrine Bowl practices. So that first day you could just kind of tell, probably overcompensating a little bit, shaking off some of the rust, probably a little nervous, and then obviously just kind of settled in from there. So I think he's really intriguing. I don't like him at tackle at all. I think he's way too slow, way too sluggish. I mean, you could maybe do him as a guard, put him there, but I think center is the way to go. So really intrigued with Brian Parker. And we'll get into centers and guards, and we'll keep this thing moving along. The tackle list is going to expand. I mean, there's even the Arizona State kid that we haven't talked about. If we're talking about guys that can move, we're all in on that kid. Max Ionacre. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. It is what it is. Ionacre, maybe. Anchovies, maybe. I don't know. But to wrap up shop here just quickly, wanted to touch base on the Lions hiring former Giants OC, head coach, whatever title he carried there at the end, Mike Kafka. What are our thoughts here? Are some of the Drew Petzing haters out there? They kind of eating their words this morning. You okay now? Everybody okay now that we've got not one bald guy, but two bald guys that are pretty smart guys. And I'm not talking about Scott here. I'm talking about these two guys.
Whoa. It's interesting. I think a lot of people would have been very happy with Kafka as the initial hire, and we wouldn't have heard, so much gnashing teeth kind of about a coordinator hire. But I wonder. I know that Petzing has been talked about as a collaborator. I like that. I like that a lot in terms of, hey, let's bounce some ideas off each other and figure out what we think works. Yeah, I think it's smart, right? So between Campbell and Petzing, and now you bring in Kafka, I think you've just kind of circled everything. Like to me, Petzing is this is going to be super overly simplified, but Petzing is the run game designer, so to speak, and I think he's really good at that stuff. I think Kafka does that kind of stuff, but with the passing game. From a quarterback out standpoint, I could have that totally wrong, but I kind of think that's how it's going to shake out, is that we have our coordinator, our play caller, who we trust to design some of the run game elements that we want to run, and we've brought somebody in who has had success with passing games, and we're going to give him some of that stuff, and those guys are going to marry their concepts together. I think it's super smart.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love it.
And to me, it's like, if you're Kafka, coming to Detroit and doing this kind of stuff with this offense is a great thing to take the next step in your career.
Yeah. No, 100%. And both these guys are 38. They're going to be 39 around the same time, Petzing and Kafka. Campbell, not much older than that, but he's going to, he's bringing in younger guys that see some of the trends and the things that may be changing within the NFL. And these are guys that you want to have because, one, they can relate to your players, but also, as you said, you've got a guy that can really put together a really strong run game, but now you've got a guy that really has a strong understanding of different passing concepts and passing plays and things that will help. I don't know what that means for David Shaw. I mean, maybe they keep him and maybe he goes into more of an advisor role, or maybe he keeps that passing game coordinator title and Kafka's more of like an advisor, a senior assistant type thing. Who knows? They'll figure something out in that regard. And I mean, I think it's I feel so much different about the Lions offense today than I did last offseason at this point. And, they had John Morton and I felt good about John Morton, but at the same time, it was like, is this going to be enough? And I still felt like it was going to be enough because I felt like they had the talent no matter what. And that's the case here. They still have that talent. There's going to be some turnover. There's going to be some retooling, but there's still a couple of good backs in this draft. There's a couple of good tight ends in this draft. There's a couple of good offensive linemen in this draft. Like, the Lions have an opportunity to get better, get younger, and kind of retool, reshape for the future with these guys behind it. So going to be really intriguing to see how it plays out, but I'm happy with the hire. I know you are as well. Of course, we would love to know what you guys think of the hiring of Mike Kafka, and of course, maybe some of your favorite offensive linemen for the 2026 NFL draft, and in what direction the Lions should go at 17 or at pick 50. What's the draft strategy for you? You can let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, go ahead, rate, review, and subscribe to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. I got nothing else. What else you got? Anything? We're good?
Good to go.
We're good. Well, he's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. You guys can follow us on Twitter or X at Russ NFL Draft and at Bischoff_Scott. This has been Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast.